their reality is not the reality that is talked about the American dream.
Correct, right? And so when you think about these young men who are being told that they can achieve a certain level of excellence and success in one way, but their lived reality, sets them up to have to contend with obstacles that prohibit them from getting there. These young men, are struggling to figure out, how to take these steps forward in order to achieve success.
It's evident that he cares. What do you care about? Welcome to the Rock Newman Show. It's the Rock Newman Show.
The Minister of Wellness Ministries and Rock Newman Show 2.0 present free community health fair and seminar Saturday, March 18th, 2023 at Union Temple Baptist Church, Washington, D.C. RSVP before we reach capacity, dmvhealthfair.eventbrite.com, or click the link in the description box. If you can't make it in person, no worries. You can purchase the live stream link by visiting theministerofwellness.com under healing services, or once again, just click that link in the description box. Calling all potential vendors, sponsors, or volunteers, please submit a contact form via theministerofwellness.com or call 888-847-8026. That's 888-847-8026. It's high time for a health revolution.
Even when I hear what I said earlier, that in 99% of America, black boys growing up, if they're in an environment and in a neighborhood next to upper and middle class white boys, have a chance of growing up, significantly greater chance of growing up poor all over this country. Let's take a stab at trying to understand why that is. Spencer, let's start with you.
Just quickly, what's important to note is that the same thing does not hold with black girls in that study, right? So it's not something about black folks being different in terms of cognitive intelligence, etc. This phenomenon was distinct among black boys and not girls, which I think is significant for us to appreciate and recognize, you know?
You know what, Spencer? You call that a phenomenon, and certainly it is. I think I want to put an exclamation point on it, that it is a crisis. That is a crisis because the multitude of issues and problems that come out of that statistic show up every day in extraordinarily negative ways. If I could go to you, the head of the Edmund Burke School, Damian, we're going to take a stab at why today is 50 years to the day of the assassination of Martin Luther King. And in that opening, I said equality for boys is very much still a dream. What's the issue? What's the problem?
Well, I mean, I can tell you what I see with the students that I work with. I think that oftentimes they're struggling with these competing narratives where, we live in a country that talks about all the opportunities that are extended to them. And yet, these young black men are faced with, systemic inequities that prohibit them from gaining, a foothold in the schools that, we are responsible for giving shape to. And so what I mean...
Let me interrupt you, because I think what you're saying, I just want to, again, put a stamp on this. Their reality is not the reality that is talked about the American dream.
Correct, right? And so when you think about these young men who are being told that they can achieve a certain level of excellence and success in one way, but their lived reality, sets them up to have to contend with obstacles that prohibit them from getting there. These young men, are struggling to figure out, how to take these steps forward in order to achieve success. And so I think about my son, right, who is 16 years old. And there are two types of conversations that I have to have with him. There's the conversation that I have with him about how he has to do certain things in order to be a certain way in school. And then there's the conversation that I have to have with him about how to realize who he is, as he's trying to grapple with what it means to be an African-American male, you know, and sorting through the different pop icons that he's trying to put on, you know, and I think it's important for his development to try these things out. However, in school and in public places, you know, that could be a challenging experience for him. So he's oftentimes straddling the fence between what it means to be who he is in a school environment, what it means to be who he is as he's contending with becoming himself through different references to pop culture. And then what it means, you know, to live in a world where, you know, being a certain way could be a death sentence. So it's tough.
Damian, let me stay with you just for a moment, because you say you have a 16-year-old son, and someone looking through an objective lens would say, man, that's a scary proposition. Have you had a conversation with him when you say you talk to him about what it means to be a young black male? Have you had the conversation with him about if he should happen to get pulled over or stopped by police?
Yeah, that conversation is had every day. We actually, before moving to DC, lived on the south side of Chicago, and so there were constant conversations had about how he needed to interact with law enforcement.
No, this is heavy. This is a heavy subject. I really would have to think a lot about trying to answer a question that I have from within, because as I'm hearing you talk about, you know, the value of providing them with good example and getting them away from the stereotype that has been thrown at them so repeatedly from media, culture, institutions, of hearing this voice of Mrs. Muldonia, who was a teacher of mine in the 9th grade, who very forcefully told me that I was never going to be anything. And I always connect.
And you still remember her name?
Oh, Miss Muldonia. Oh, yes, I do. Yes. I remember that. Also remember the alcohol on her breath. But I, you know, one of the great, maybe greatest, professional nights of my life was standing in a boxing ring and having represented the guy and brought him through the maze of the crazy boxing world, and his hand being raised as the heavyweight champion of the world. And then that was a Saturday night. That was a Friday. So it wasn't Monday till we were able to cash the check. And this, you know, check that was pretty substantial. And literally sitting there with the president of the bank where we cashed the check. Miss Muldonia's voice was still there. And so by the grace of God and reading Claude Brown and Man-Child in the Promised Land and Malcolm X and becoming a disciple of Muhammad Ali, who defied all conventional wisdom, and coming to an institution like Howard University, which lifted me, and it lifted me beyond that assessment that she gave. It just makes me so passionate that the three of you are here and we are talking about how to reach those who might not be the beneficiary of sort of all those other forces that I had. You all have to be those forces, man.
I guess one question I would have for you two is, where do black parents go to figure out what schools are and what school systems are doing well with black males, right? Like, so many people move places because the test scores are high or whatever, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the way it is for black males, as you mentioned in terms of your particular school, right? So how do you figure out where are the environments that are best for black males, where black males are thriving?
Couldn't have asked a better question myself.
Yeah, I mean,